A large part of this summary confirmation phase is review. Drilling and recitation through questioning are strategies that teachers use to review. All teachers review with drilling or class recitation. All teachers review with questioning. Drilling and recitation involve the teacher asking a question and the students responding, sometimes in rapid-fire succession, demonstrating what they have learned and what they remember. Let's take a look.
Smaller. Prokaryote. What about more complex? Eukaryote. Awesome. What about DNA chain in a circle? Prokaryote. Awesome. What about plants, animals, fungi, protists? Eukaryote. Ribosomes. Both. That was a slow one. Both. Both types of cells will have ribosomes. What about unicellular?
Prokaryote.
Good. Who is the last Valois king? Raise your hand. Last Valois king. Think about it. Think. Last Valois king. Brianna?
Was it Henry the Second?
Good guess. You're in the right family. The last Valois ever.
Henry the Third.
Henry the Third. Good. Who wrote the Edict of Nantes? Haley?
Henry the Fourth.
Very good. What's Henry the Fourth's last name?
Chicken.
No. All right. So Henry the Third is the last. Henry the Fourth is the first. Bourbon. Okay, good. Okay.
Questioning is most effective when these 6 characteristics are followed. They are provided in your workbook. 1. Questions are clear, specific, and to the point, delivered one at a time, with a cue to channel students' response. 2. Purposeful, aligned with the lesson's intent, often written in advance by the teacher. 3. Brief. 4. Natural and simple language, conversational, appropriate to the level of the class, and with clarification of any new words. 5. Sequences, starting with questions of fact, integrated with previously discussed material, then prompting students to refine or apply their understanding. And 6. Thought-provoking, sufficiently strong to pique interest, and designed to help students understand and analyze. Now, let's view questioning in action.
How did you figure out to set them up like this?
Because right there in the first matrix, it has 2x plus 9.
Okay.
And then in the equal sign, it has 17 in the same spot
Okay.
as it. So all you do is just take it out of the matrix and then put it on the side and
Good stuff.
just solve it.
Good. So right, so corresponding elements are just equal to each other. So set them equal, solve for x, solve for y. Got x equals 4, y equals 1. Any questions?
Questioning provides a convenient and immediate way for you to assess student learning. It also provides an opportunity to deliver on-the-spot reteaching as well. In addition to drilling, recitation, and questioning, summarizing key concepts is also an important summary confirmation tactic. All teachers summarize key concepts. Let's see this indicator in action. You'll observe a teacher working in a whole class setting on a unit review who puts summarizing into action. That clip is followed by another teacher's perspective on the significance of paraphrasing and summarizing. Let's take a look.
I think that the more that students can summarize and reflect on what they're doing, the more concrete it becomes to them, the farther they can expand their thinking. As they summarize what they're learning, it solidifies for them what it is that they've accomplished for the day and what they've learned. And then also, when they need to pull back that information, it's not just, oh, we did this activity. It's what they learned from that activity. And I think that, the more that they can do that, and the more that they justify and write things completely out, the more concrete, the higher level it can take them to in their thinking.
Annalise?
To discover new lands and to conquer and settle, we would retrieve share of gold, silver, and riches to be gained in Indian slaves.
Can you summarize it?
Basically just to get stuff like money.
I love it. And in this time I'll accept the word stuff. Because it's lots of stuff, and it's good stuff, okay? And that's exactly what I highlighted as well.
So you see, at this point in teacher-directed instruction, summarizing and paraphrasing helps solidify what your students know and can take them to a higher level of learning. It also confirms for the teacher that what has been taught has also been learned. Before we move on, there is one other important aspect of teacher-directed instruction that we want to address: teacher-student interaction. Teacher-student interaction isn't something that occurs at the start of the lesson, in the middle of it, or at the end. It is ongoing throughout the entire lesson. We've isolated some very basic interactions that go a long way in promoting positive teacher-student relationships and successful student learning. Here they are. All teachers encourage students to check their own comprehension. All teachers encourage students to paraphrase, summarize, and relate. All teachers verbally praise students. Remember, this interaction is not limited to a specific point in the lesson. It should occur throughout the entire lesson. Let's start with how teachers encourage students to check their own comprehension. This practice also prompts students to take responsibility for their own learning and to understand how they learn best. We're going to watch a middle school teacher do just that. She has developed what she calls a Rate Yourself review sheet as one way to interact with her students by encouraging them to check their own comprehension. Her students take time after whole class review to reflect on what they do and do not know. Here we go.
Well, I find a lot of times students don't know what they don't know. So what I try to do is force them to think about the lessons that we've had, how well they understand the concepts, if there's a particular area of weakness. Just like with the graph section, there were 4 sections we could have covered. Well, they may have mastered 2, and when they think about it, they really don't know the other 2 so well, so they need to think about what they need to do to get those areas up. I also encourage them to use those activities to come after school for remediation. So when I did my Rate Myself activity, I know that I don't know properties of real numbers. Well, after school they can come back and say, I don't know properties, can you help me with this, because I gave myself a 3 in this area, so I need to get it up to a 4. And what I like to do is give a post-assessment also. So after they take the test, we like to have them, after they've studied, re-rate themselves, and they get to compare the 2 after studying, after remediation. So it's not just the front end thing, we do it later on in the school year also to kind of do some comparison.
This practice goes hand in hand with the next indicator. All teachers encourage students to paraphrase, summarize, and relate. When we ask students to paraphrase, summarize, and relate, we are able to gauge what students have understood and made sense of. We are also teaching them to assess their own learning as well. The math teacher you saw here has had success with her Rate Yourself approach. What other ways can teachers encourage students to check their comprehension? What about these? Ask students to compare and contrast. Ask students the question, is this the same as? Ask students to give an example. Ask students, what does this mean? Prompt students to state content in their own words. Or offer them a word problem to solve or an experiment that uses the new concepts or skills. Throughout the lesson, and as you are encouraging students to check their own comprehension, you are also verbally praising them, our next success indicator. All teachers verbally praise students. We all know that a little praise can go a long way, particularly when it comes to student engagement and motivation. For some students, having a teacher who believes in their ability as a learner makes all the difference in their success. And when the teacher is specific about what is being praised, all the better. Let's watch how these teachers incorporate verbal praise into their interactions with students, and then listen to them describe the impact it has on their students.
I think one of the best things that I can do to move them from my cueing to being more independent is compliment them when they do that independently. So if I notice them taking the skill that we've learned and applying it themselves, I like to give them a lot of praise and encourage them to continue with that skill.
Throughout the day, whenever I see that students are doing a great job of following expectations, I make sure to praise those students rather than if half the class is talking and half the class is on task, rather than getting on the students who are off task, I make sure to praise those students who are on task. And with my students, they immediately see, oh, these students are being praised, let me go ahead and do that as well. And so just, I guess, using my students as a model of what the expectations are.
Those teachers incorporate verbal praise into their student interaction to encourage and promote positive behavior. Let's see some more ways that verbally praising your students can contribute to effective teacher-student interaction.
The praise kind of motivates them. They get very excited if they know that the teacher's going to say something positive or the other students may say something positive. I really want to have that learning community within the classroom where it's not just coming from the teacher, but it's coming from the students. And sometimes you'll even hear the students say, oh, that was a good idea, praising each other. And that's important to me. It's not just coming from the teacher, but I want them to listen to each other. Along with the verbal praise, a lot of it is the tickets. They love to get the tickets, and
that's a great strategy.
In order to get tickets, usually it's for justification of answers, not just that they said yes, no, prime, composite, but they've justified their answers, and that's my goal with the tickets. And then once they've justified, they know that they can apply that ticket towards 1 point on a test, or they can collect them up and apply up to 10 points per test or assignment. I found that in the past, if I just give an overall good job or nice job, the students really don't know what that means, or it doesn't get them to really key in on what I'm looking for. And so by giving them a more, specific example with, say, oh, I like the way you created your array, could you tell me more about that? And getting them to key in on, just the specifics help focus them on what I'm looking for, and praising them for those specifics helps to get them there. I think a lot of times the praise motivates them, because if it's just broad, fantastic, great, what was great? Was it that I sat here quietly? Was it great because I, did what you told me to, but I still don't understand? But basically focusing on those objectives, and good job with that because you did this, helps them to see what it is I really want them to understand.
Can you see how a little praise can go a long way? It really does make a big difference. Now that the new material has been introduced, presented, and summarized, you are ready to introduce work time activities to the students. Again, most learning in work time is student-directed, but in a teacher-directed group, the teacher practices much the same methods as in whole class teacher-directed instruction. During work time in student-directed learning, students will practice and apply their new learning on their own, independently, in small groups, or sometimes using the computer. Our next part of instructional delivery focuses on student-directed instruction. We'll see you there.